All right, cheers and huzzah! Welcome back to the Tavern, and welcome and happy St. Patrick's Day. Happy St. Patrick's Day weekend. I hope you had a wonderful, even though St. Patrick's Day happened during the week, hope you had a wonderful St. Patrick's Day. And yeah, if you're doing anything fun this weekend for it, I'd love to know about it. So yeah, definitely let me know in the comments what you will be up to, or if you did do anything fun on actual St. Patrick's Day, what you will, what you did. So yeah, I guess I hope you had a wonderful week. And so today we will be discussing a little bit of Celtic lore and legend. Hey, what's up? So just kind of keeping with the whole spirit of things there. So, but first, a couple of announcements that I am really excited about. For one, for those that might not have seen the announcement yet on my social media, my email list, as well as my websites and everything, I am also now, I have a blog now on the Celtic Nations magazine website, which I am really excited about. They're a wonderful magazine. They really zero in on a lot of things that have to do with Celtic culture, which includes cultures of Ireland, Scotland, Wales, the whole of the British Isles, the Celtic Isles. But of course, the Celts were pretty spread out everywhere, but they're mostly usually associated with that general region of the Celtic Isles, the British Isles, or Gaul, as it was called way back during the Roman times, the Roman Empire. So I am going to be, like I said, having a blog there, and it's called, they gave me the blog, it's called Gothic Celt. And I'm really, like I said, it's brand new, so if you go there, there's not a whole lot on there yet. But what I'm going to be doing there is having some selected articles that are already on my bonfires, castles, and time travel webzine, which I also have. If you haven't checked that out, definitely check it out if you're into things like time travel and just medieval history, just history in general. History in general that took place maybe like pre-20th century. That's kind of what I cover over there. But, of course, that doesn't mean I'm not going to cover the occasional maybe 20th century history. But it's mainly kind of really old time history, like old-timey, like very old-timey history. But I do have bonfires, castles, and time travel. So I am going to be taking some articles and from there and putting it onto the just like a few selected ones, because I want to save something for my webzine. But I'm going to be taking a few selected articles that I think would be appropriate for Celtic Nations magazine, and then putting them onto, also publishing them on Celtic Nations magazine and on my blog. And then I'm also going to be coming up with a series that's going to be exclusive to bonfires, castles, not bonfires, castles, and time travel, to Celtic Nations magazine. Because on bonfires, castles, and time travel, I have my FFL Friday, which I have every second and fourth Friday of the month. And FFL Friday, it's folklore, fables, and legends. So I have, I have I might choose like something maybe from folklore, or like a certain fable from around the world. Sometimes Celtic, sometimes I did a Norwegian ghost story for the last one. So it could be, I like to keep, variety, because there's a lot of really cool you know, folklore and fables that are from all over the world. So, so it's going to be, so I do that on the Bonfires Celtic, Bonfires, Castles, and Time Travel website. But one thing that I was thinking of doing, especially since I got some new books in the mail in these last couple of weeks, I'm going to be actually filming a little book haul probably right after I'm done with this, and I'm going to be posting that to my platforms, and they're just like they're history books. They're history books that I got to help inspire. You know, just inspire my my music writing, my story writing, especially as I'm writing, you know, my new Tudor England album. You know, I've just been like reading quite a bit, watching a lot of documentaries, and also, you know, even just like reading just for my own learning, because something, you know, and also you never know what might inspire you, what might inspire me, you know, to write, you know, what might get my creative juices flowing. So, and one thing that really drives me to do a lot of what I do within just the living history world, and just with history in general, and writing, you know, just writing my, you know, the music that I do, and, you know, just how, you know, having the interest that I have. Even when I was first writing my book series, the first installment of my book series, The Birthright, one thing that has always driven me to do what I do is telling untold history, I guess. One book that I came across, and this won't be in this next book haul that I'm going to do, but one book that I came across is I think it's called the I put it on my wish list, on my shopping list, because it's among the books that I am going to be getting and reading and everything. One thing that it's called, one book that I am going to be getting, it's called, I can't quite remember the title, but it's the Forgotten History of Ireland, or Ireland, the Forgotten History, and it did, it kind of reminded me, especially like when I was going, kind of when I was remembering back when I was doing my original historical research for my book series, The Birthright. It kind of reminded me of like why I got started in talking about history and you know, having it inspire a lot of what I do. It's because, you know, we seem to be, they seem to be, whatever powers that be that are out there, they seem to be, hey, how are you? Thanks for joining me. They seem to be just very, very, it's very selective of which history we are taught, and I don't think that that's really a big secret. But one thing that I have just noticed is that a lot of people, I don't know, it just seems like, even though a lot of people seem to know that a lot of the history that we're taught is selected and maybe even reinterpreted, you know, to kind of, you know, fit a certain narrative. I don't know, there seems to be a reluctance to learn more, and I don't know if it's a reluctance so much as maybe they just don't really know where to start, because it can be overwhelming, because I know, you know, there are so many books out there. There's, you know, even with all the historical documents out there, sometimes, you know, if you're not used to reading, you know, that, you know, the kind of more kind of antiquated language and everything, you know, sometimes it can be, you know, a little bit like, you know, you can look at it and be like, okay, yeah, I'm not going, you know, not bothering with that, you know, and I can understand that, but at the same time, it's kind of, you know, it's kind of like, well, that kind of drives me to then discuss, you know, a lot of the history that isn't typically talked about. And that is one thing, and one thing that I have noticed, especially when, you know, studying the history of, studying the history of the British Isles, and even just kind of looking at what's all out there entertainment-wise, you know, and, you know, no disrespect to, you know, the English or anything like that, because hey, I'm writing an album on Tudor England, so, you know, so no disrespect there, I mean, obviously, but, you know, and I have a great interest in English history too, and I find it very fascinating. I find the whole thing with the Wars of the Roses very fascinating. I love the Tudors, and I love, you know, Elizabeth I, and I find, you know, Mary Tudor, Elizabeth's sister, to be a very fascinating person to study as well. And, you know, and then there's Richard III, who was overthrown by Henry VII. You know, that's all very, very fascinating. And then when you want to go back even further, you know, there's, you know, King Arthur and the Knights of the Round Table, and medieval England is just, you know, that just really, really, you know, really just, you know, kind of gets my creative juices flowing. However, you hear, most of what you hear about that part of the world, most of the history you hear is the history of England, you know, and thanks to shows like, you know, Outlander and, you know, things like that, the whole history of Scotland is also being discussed as well. So, so that's starting to come up, or at least like that part of like the Jacobite uprising, you know, that part of the history of Scotland. And then, you know, and even, and I know that there's been some controversy with the movie Braveheart, the one with Mel Gibson. I know there's been some controversy with that, people saying, well, it's not very accurate. But you know what, but that, things like that, it gets people interested in that history. It might get somebody who might not otherwise think to maybe look up somebody like William Wallace or Robert the Bruce, or you know, or King Arthur, or, you know, hey, Monty Python and the Holy Grail. I mean, you know, you know, I mean, hey, that can get you into Arthurian legend as well, get you interested to look it up a little bit further. And, you know, and the thing is, it's like, you know, and Claire Ridgway, I absolutely adore her work with Tudor history. You know, and she's, I think I have mentioned her before. I've bought a couple of her books on Anne Boleyn. She actually has a really great YouTube channel and website called the Anne Boleyn Files. And she doesn't just talk about Anne Boleyn. She also talks about other figures in Tudor history. But she started out studying Anne Boleyn. And one thing that she says, and, you know, and she does kind of, I don't know if because she's not a huge fan of the other Boleyn girl. Neither am I. I don't like the way, I mean, I've said before, I don't like the way Anne Boleyn is portrayed in that book at all. I think it's horribly inaccurate. And I think it was, you know, I mean, obviously people are going to take creative liberties, but I don't know, I didn't like those particular creative liberties. And even the show The Tudors, I love it, you know, but there are definitely some inaccuracies there. I mean, let's be honest. But you know what? But one thing that Claire Ridgway said, and we've even said this in the living history world before too, is that, yes, you know, shows like The Tudors, or even, you know, the kind of maligned, depending on who you talk to, other Boleyn girl. And Claire Ridgway, actually, she does do a full video on exactly kind of her own breakdown and her own kind of review on the other Boleyn girl. And it's a very good one, and I agree with a lot of what she says. But she does point out that even though, yes, there might be inaccuracies there, you know what, the one thing that, what we can at least appreciate shows like that or books like that for, is that hopefully it will get other people interested, maybe other people interested that might not have otherwise thought to look up things on Tudor England, or look up things on, William, like when it comes to Braveheart, William Wallace or Robert the Bruce, and, might not have thought to, look up, things, like, King Arthur. I mean, there's a lot of King Arthur movies out there. And, some people might agree with the interpretation of, that interpretation of the legends, depending on what movie you watch, and others might not, but it does, it does, at least you would hope, encourage people to, research more, look more into it, take an interest in those parts of history. And, and the thing is, I mean, I know, like, Outlander has even been, has also been kind of like, well, that's not accurate, this isn't accurate. And the thing is, too, and I'm actually, I was going to discuss this on my podcast that I'm going to be, I'll talk a little bit more about that probably in the coming weeks, because I'm still coming up with it. But I am going to be discussing on my podcast, like, some books that I'm reading, and, and just things like that. But she, but like I said, kind of like what Claire Ridgway said, let people find history. However, let people find the history, however they're led to it. And the thing that I am going to discuss on my podcast is, like, kind of like the purists, the purist historians, and those that just kind of want the entertainment, like they just go for the entertainment factor. I'm kind of somewhere in the middle. See, I'd say by heart, like, I'm a purist. If I had to pick sides, I'm definitely a purist. I do think it's important to tell history as accurately as possible. I mean, of course, nobody's perfect. You don't have all the information. I mean, I've had to revise some of my own stuff, some of my own articles, some of my own tours, at historical sites, because I'm always finding new information every day, and there might be a piece of information that I thought was true before, and then later on I find out actually that's not very accurate. I'm constantly revising, so, so you at least have to, put forth the effort and try. So, in that sense, I'm a purist. I tend to, like I said, I place great importance on trying to tell as accurate history as possible, and I'm constantly refining because I want to give people that accurate picture. But at the same time, I also understand, hey Kirk, what's up? At the same time, I also understand, though, the need for that entertainment factor, because one thing that, those of us that are into history kind of need to understand and recognize is that not everybody, in fact, most people in the general public are not going to get all excited by a document, signed by this British king or signed by, George Washington or whoever. Most of them are not going to just, at least not right off the bat, be that way. Most of them, they are going to get, kind of take an interest in maybe like history, whether that's English history, Irish history, Scottish history, Russian history, whatever history, by first partaking in some form of entertainment, say a film or a book or, a play or something like that. They're going to probably, in fact, I've actually, become interested in some parts of history by, taking in some form of entertainment. And then and then I'm just like, oh, I want to learn more about that. And then I go do the research, and then I'm like, okay, well, this is, okay, well, maybe, yeah, obviously they took some creative, I start to recognize where they took the creative liberties and what is actually fact. And that's how you learn. Like, you can't just shut out, the entertainment aspect of it. You can't just, shut out, like, say, somebody who's brand new to, and I'm kind of looking at my fellow living historians when I say this. It's like, you can't really, you can't shut somebody out just because their outfit might not be accurate enough, because there's some of that does go on in the living history world, and that's the thing. Everybody starts somewhere, and and like I said, it's like the purists have, the purists have their place. Like I said, I'm a purist. If I had to choose a side, because you do want to tell history as accurately as possible, but it's also important to make it entertaining too, and appeal, kind of like said in layman's terms, and appealing to, people of the general public. So, and that's what we also have to keep in mind too. And, so I think it's important to be somewhere in the middle, because on the one hand, accuracy is important, but you don't want to be such a, and I will, a snob about it. You don't want to be such a snob about it that you turn people off, to even wanting to, learn more, or even, hey, join your living history and reenactment group and kind of help tell that history. But at the same time, on this side, you also don't want to be, just all, just kind of anything goes, back in the 18th century, that, our husbands were out hunting saber-toothed tigers. Yes, there was somebody at a living history event saying that. So, yeah, saber-toothed tigers. So, yeah, you don't want to be doing anything like that. That's a big no. And, yeah, very true. But no matter what you do, there's always going to be somebody that doesn't like or agree with what you present. Absolutely, absolutely. So, the only thing you can do is just do the best you can with it. Try to portray something as accurately as possible, and, have fun with it, because this is supposed to be fun, and that's why I'm also making the music and writing the stories that I do, is because I want to make stuff like this fun for people. And, yeah, so getting back to the Celtic Nations magazine, I have this idea to just write a forgotten history series that's going to also go with my podcast too. It's still in development, so I don't know exactly what exactly what the format's going to be, but I'll definitely be letting you know, and I am super excited about it. So yeah, that's kind of the end of my rant. And on to some of the other announcements. I'm going to be finishing up my Parting Glass EP. Finally, I'll be able to get that out to you guys. I wanted to get it out in January, and I keep apologizing for it, but it was just kind of like one of those things, like at the last minute, like stuff goes wrong and you kind of have to do some things over again. And, because we had it in post-production and everything, and then, I don't know if the gremlins or the fairies or something got to it, but we are getting it finished and wrapped. We'll get it out to you, and then I will be putting more of my energy into my Tudor England album and everything, which I'm really, really excited that I love how the songs are coming together, and getting all the chord placements and like the stuff for the demos and everything. I mean, it's a process, definitely, but I'm, really, really excited about that. And sorry, I have a cheat sheet just so I don't miss anything. And yeah, continuing to work on my Tudor England album, as well as getting some short stories out to my blog, and I do want to write a new installment of The Birthright too. So yeah, so a lot of things coming up, and writing for Celtic Nations magazine, their website, my blog. It's called The Gothic Celt. I'm really, really happy about that. They gave me that name, so but yeah, but I'm just a bunch of things that I'm really excited about. So, with that said, I have a couple of things that I am going to just review really quick for you, and then I have to show you my tavern setup. So, all right, so the tea that I am drinking in this mug, made by my friend Mike Flaherty. In fact, I'm going to take a quick drink of it, because I was gonna say I don't think I raised my glass to you yet. So cheers, huzzah! All right, and the tea that I'm drinking, it's actually by this wonderful historical cosmetics company called LBCC Historical, and I will leave in the replay. I'll leave her tag down in the description. But it's her Emily Bronte tea. And if you're familiar with the story Wuthering Heights, she wrote that novel. And it's it's one of my favorite books. It's actually a book that I like to read during the fall. So, but it's one of my favorite books. And the Brontes were actually Irish, even though they lived in England. The Brontes were Irish. So, so it's appropriate, St. Patrick's Day. And in this tea, it's green tea, cinnamon, dried orange, ginger, apple, hibiscus, and calendula. So this tea is absolutely delicious. She also has a really good Highlander tea. Now, I've gone to her website, and I know she changes out like her teas and her products and stuff a lot. So you may not find this particular tea there all the time. However, she does have a lot of other delicious teas there, and I just kind of wanted to give this a shout out. When I was kind of deciding what I was going to drink in tonight's live stream, I was kind of, I came across this, and I hadn't had some in a while, and I figured, hey, why not have the Emily Bronte tea in tonight's live stream. And also, those of you that have seen the previous episodes of my live stream, obviously if you've seen the live stream with Fanny and Finn of Fanny's Boozy Jams and Jellies, I can't say enough good things about these guys. Their products are just awesome. I don't think I've tried a single product of theirs that I didn't like. Some I like, there might be some I like better than others. There might be some where, that like, ooh, I'll buy this all the time. Others where it's like, okay, once in a while, if I might think I'm going to be making something that this would be appropriate with. But they recently, so basically a little background on them. They make jams and jellies infused with some sort of alcoholic beverage. For instance, I adore their sweet red wine jelly. It's really awesome. Also recently, because they hail from Gettysburg, so a lot of their jams and jellies are made out of are not made out of key characters. Oh geez, okay. Yeah, it's been kind of a long day, but it's based off of, it's inspired, I'll say, by key figures that were from Gettysburg and also participated in the Civil War. For instance, I have their what is it? I think it's Dan Sickles' Peach Orchard Jelly. Hi, how are you? Thanks for joining. So yeah, their Peach Orchard Jelly. Also their sweet red wine jelly. They have their Battlefield series jelly. Now this is actually called Fanny's Happy Jam, because they recently released a jam, a CBD infused jam, which I'm just, I love. I'm a huge CBD fan. And this is hot pepper mango CBD infused jam. And they suggested to me to put this maybe on a chicken dish or something like that. Now I did use this on a, because I meal prep I do meal prep. However, lately with everything getting so busy, I've actually I've been ordering pre-made meals that are they're organic, they're healthy, all that stuff. But I started just ordering from it's this place called Pittsburgh Fresh. They're awesome. Also Daily Harvest. I really like them too. But I ordered because I ordered a bunch of like chicken a la carte from Pittsburgh Fresh. It was last weekend. And I actually, and you know, it came with zoodles, asparagus, all that fun stuff. And I tried this on the chicken, and this stuff is awesome. It's hot pepper mango, like I said. And the thing about some of their hotter, their more savory, hotter jams and jellies that are like I said, hot pepper mango. Also, I talked about in a previous live stream, the Devil's Den. It's made with Fireball whiskey and hot peppers and everything. If you're concerned about the nice thing about like how they make their stuff is like if you're concerned about whether or not whether like this is going to be too hot for you or sounds very interesting, I mean I definitely recommend checking them out. But if you're concerned about it being too hot, if you're not a fan of like anything spicy, I'll say, you know what, you only really taste a little bit of, at least I did, only a little bit of the pepper. It's not like, it's going to hit you and burn your tongue. It's like one thing that they're very, very good at is really knowing how to blend together, their sweet with their savory ingredients. Like this, this is a really nice combination of hot pepper and mango. And plus it's infused with CBD. So, and they are certified. I think they partnered with this company called like Karma Farms or something. I believe it's called Karma Farms. Correct. If you guys see this, correct me if I'm wrong with that, but I do believe it's Karma Farms. But also if you haven't seen the live stream with Fanny and Finn, definitely check it out too, because they talk a lot more about their product. Plus we talk about the ghosts of Gettysburg and like, and just paranormal experiences that we've had there. So that I've had there and that, they've had there because they live in Gettysburg. So yeah, so it's a really fun little episode. So I definitely recommend checking that out. And then last but not least, my tavern setup. I have a bunch of mythology candles here because I thought that it would be appropriate with the whole kind of like Celtic theme. So I have their Breeze Spice Market candle here. All these candles, except for one, are from their Lord of the Rings inspired line. It's their I think they called it their Middle Earth inspired line. But it's there's a Breeze Spice Market. Also, I have here the Bearded Tree. All right, and then also because my sleeves I don't want to reach across, but I also have the Wizard's Pipeweed and also King of the Wood Elves. And last but not least, I just decided, why not? Let's have the Alchemist here as well. So yeah, and I am actually very, very eagerly awaiting, and it is on its way. I'm very eagerly awaiting their newest candle, Cave Troll, which I ordered, and I really, really look forward to unboxing that. I will be unboxing that on Facebook, on my Facebook Live, and then of course it'll be posted on all of my other platforms. But I really look forward to unboxing Cave Troll and just seeing, exactly what that smells like. So, but it sounds like it does smell very good, and I do trust mythology candles to, like, when they do something, to really, really put out something good. So I have Cave Troll coming. I also have White Witch coming, which is from their Always Winter Never Christmas line of candles that they put out in the winter time and around Christmas, based off of the Narnia Chronicles. I got their lamppost candle, and unfortunately they're sold out of those candles now, and because they're bringing out their spring collection, their winter collection is being sunsetted right now. So I'm happy I was able to get my hands on the White Witch candle. And the smell of the Cave Troll. I hope it doesn't smell as bad as it sounds. Yeah, I mean, at first, when they first unveiled it, I was kind of like, that's it, that's interesting. But based on how it was described, it's moss, I think mushrooms are in there too. And I think it's a scent that it's not like you can just go out and buy these scents and put it together. So I think they made this scent very, very unique, they said. So yeah, I know you think cave troll, oh, it's gonna, how's that gonna smell? But yeah, I look forward to to actually unboxing it and just sharing it and just sharing my own experience with it and and seeing how exactly how it smells. So yeah, and like I said, I will be doing that whole unboxing on my Facebook page. So and then reposting it to all my other pages. So all right, so take another swig of my Emily Bronte tea. So on to the Celtic lore and legends. So like I said, one thing that drives me to talk about history is just talking about and just discussing the forgotten history. And I do look forward to discussing more, especially the history of Ireland, because again, that doesn't really get talked about a whole lot. I mean, because like I said earlier, you hear a lot about England, and you hear a little bit about Scotland now, because especially now with Outlander being so popular, but you don't really hear much about you hear a very minute amount about Ireland. And somebody else pointed out to me the one time too, they're like, you hear almost nothing about Wales. And I'm like, this is true. So, I like I said, one thing that I am going to be looking forward to discussing on Celtic Nations magazine is a lot of the forgotten history. And that also includes some of the forgotten and maybe not so much talked about folklore, and I do try to bring a little bit of that out on my Folklore, Fables, and Legends Friday on my own Bonfires, Castles, and Time Travel website. But one thing, and this is probably even though this is probably a more common legend that is told throughout the Celtic Isles or the British Isles, is the legend and lore of the Changelings. So, and also, do you have a favorite Celtic piece of legend or folklore or fables? And if so, definitely let me know. Maybe I'll do an FFL Friday on it, or I'll write about it on Celtic Nations magazine. But one thing I've always been fascinated by the fairy folk. And on one of my FFL Fridays, I actually did a short piece on the fairy rings. Now, what the fairy rings are, as far as when it comes to just regular explainable natural causes, it's basically a ring of fungus that can form. It can form pretty much anywhere. It can form basically anywhere where there's grass and the right climate. And it's like I said, this big ring of usually mushrooms. And it is said that if you accidentally step into the fairy ring, you will be dragged into the realm of the fairies. And some of the legends are more sinister than others. In fact, a lot of people tend to associate, fairies with maybe just these cute little sprite-like, creatures. But when you really get into a lot of the lore and legend of the fae folk, they're they're not very, like, the fairies, they're not very nice. And if you make one angry, you know, I mean, it might not end very well for you. But if you were to enter, one legend is if you were to enter the fairy ring, you would be, like I said, drawn into the ring of the fairies, and you would be made to, you know, basically forced to dance with them. And sometimes, you know, people, you know, humans have been lured into the fairy rings, and they're basically made to dance until they either you know, basically die. I mean, there's no other nice way to put it. Or they just go crazy, or they're trapped forever in that fairy world, and they basically, they go missing to the human world. And there have been, and there have been accounts of, and the thing is, it's like, there are written accounts of people that swear they went into the fairy ring, or they, you know, they know somebody who was trapped in a fairy ring, and then they came out. Hey, that sounds like an interesting skit that we could do with the puppets. Hey, you know, hey, why not? You know, it's, you know, that's what's great about some of these folklore, you know, some of this folklore. It's like, it can really, like, get some of the creative juices going. And, you know, whether you do skits, whether you write, whether you know, write stories or music, I mean, it can really, and you know, inspire a lot, or paint, or, you know, and that's what's so great about these. But there are accounts that also tell of, you know, like whether it was somebody's firsthand account, or they knew somebody who went missing actually for a while. Because the thing is, it's, I think it's something like, and correct me if these figures are wrong, but if you go missing in the fairy world for maybe, you know, if you're in the fairy world for maybe 10 minutes, you could be missing for a month in the human world. But to you, it's only, you know, you were only in that fairy world for 10 minutes. However, you might find, you know, come back and then find that your family and friends have been looking for you for the last month, and they have no idea where you're at. And there have been written accounts by, you know, people whose, you know, maybe family and friends went missing for, you know, maybe a month or two, and then, you know, their family or their loved one finally returns and swears that they were caught in the realm of the fairies, and that they were only gone for 10 or 20 minutes. Why are you guys so worried? You know, but it actually, you know, but in the human world, they were gone for, like, you know, maybe a couple of months. So, and that's one thing that's also very fascinating about the fairy world versus the human world. And there was one legend that, I forget the man's name, but when I was doing some research on this, and I might even write about this on one of my folklore, fable, and legend Friday articles, there was one such man who, he stepped into a fairy ring, but somehow he kept on escaping. He kept on coming out. Like, he would go missing for months at a time, but he would end up, you know, back in the human world. And there was one night where he said that the next time he stepped into the fairy realm, he would never be coming back. And one day he did just disappear. However, there are some people that would say that they do see him from time to time, you know, riding his horse across, you know, just basically across the land, and then he disappears. Basically, he disappears into thin air, like once he reaches the woods. So. Yeah, you know, and I don't know, but that, like, what do you think? Do you think that, you know, that's all true? Do you think that, you know, fairies are, you know, there might be some creatures, you know, from another dimension or what have you, out there? Or, you know, do you think that it was just, you know, things to try to explain, just things that might have been unexplainable at that time? Another kind of keeping with the the fairies, keeping with the fairy theme. Another one is the Changeling. And I also, this is another that I find pretty fascinating too. And it's quite creepy. Because basically what happens with a changeling is, with the changeling, what happens is fairies will steal a human child and replace that human child with, say, maybe a fairy baby, or sometimes it's a block of wood that is, that they put a spell on, so that the humans will think that this is an actual, it's a human baby. But once that illusion and that spell wears off, then, the parents are left with this block of wood, where their child once was. Or, and this I find to be just the strangest, is sometimes it's also an old, withered, basically an elderly fairy who is said to not really have any use to the Fae world anymore. So they'll go and live their life, their remaining years in the human world, because it's also said that fairies, a fairy can't thrive for very long in the human world. So that fairy, that old fairy, will then live their remaining days in, in the care of humans, basically, and basically being spoiled the way a baby would be by the humans. And there's so many different theories on how, on why they might have believed things like this. Say, for instance, if their child was, say the child was sickly and, died, unfortunately, that might be a way of trying to comfort the grieving parents, saying, it's not your fault, that baby could have been a changeling, and, and things like that. Also, when, long ago, when they might not have been as aware of what might have caused certain disabilities, that would also maybe they would try to explain it that way, that child is a changeling. Or because like I said, it was said that a lot of the times fairies couldn't really thrive in the human world, at least not for very long. So if a fairy baby were placed in the human world, they would actually not grow very well, or they might be slow, be a little bit, they may not learn as quickly as, say, other people around them. People also theorize it might have also been a way to explain maybe certain learning disabilities or something that they may not have had a lot of information on at that time. And some say that it was also a cautionary tale to, look out for your kids, look out for your children. Don't leave your children unattended, which I also think that's a possibility too, because a lot of these old fairy tales and fables and folklore, a lot of them are cautionary tales. In fact, the earliest fairy tales, especially, the tales by the Grimm brothers, they were actually originally for adults. And of course, over the years, they were, Disneyized, if you will. But the original Grimm's fairy tales, a lot of them are pretty gruesome, and they were meant for adults. They were meant as, a lot of them were meant as cautionary tales. So, that's also a possibility too. Now, why the fairies would steal a human child, or sometimes not even a child itself. I mean, there's even stories of the fairies taking an attractive young woman or attractive young man to, to the fairy realm and replacing them with a changeling, as if people wouldn't notice, an adult human, but it's said that, that one reason why they did it is because the fairies are very, very attracted to beauty. They're attracted to beauty, they're attracted to music, and, of course, humans make music. And, babies are seen as very cute, very beautiful. So that could, be one reason why they would be, they would want to take a human baby if, or if like, there was a young woman or a young man who was exceptionally beautiful and say, hey, maybe they were musically talented, they might, the fairies, might take that, young woman, young man, to the fairy realm, and it's also said that they would want to use that human as a way of, increasing the fairy population, while also kind of using like human beauty, if you will, to also populate, populate their fairy realms. So so they, like I said, couple different things that they might replace a human baby with. It would be, like I said, either a fairy child or a fairy baby, or a block of wood that was, cast a spell on, and they would be, and the parents, it would be under the illusion that that was their baby, or it would be an old withered fairy that now, wants to live the rest of their life out being pampered by humans, and there are some, pretty almost disturbing methods that people would do to try to bring their human children back. There is one particular story where a woman suspects that her child is a changeling and was taken, her real child was taken by the fairies. And I believe the story, it was written in the 1890s, but it takes place longer ago than that. So the woman, she suspects that, her child's a changeling, and she goes to the old medicine woman, and the old medicine woman tells her, well, what you must do is you must somehow make the changeling laugh, and that'll bring back your child. So the woman goes home and she starts cooking like eggshells in water, and somehow the changeling actually finds this funny and starts laughing, and by doing that, the fairies are forced to bring back her human child. Now that's one of the more tamer, stories. There are some stories where people like actually because there's other versions where you actually have to hurt the changeling in order for the fairies to bring back basically bring back the human child. And like I said, some of them get a little like disturbing. Like people are really trying to get rid of this changeling. And then there's also stories of how people end up, because they suspect that their brother or sister or even husband or wife or child is a changeling, they actually do end up killing them. And then they end up going to trial like for murder and have their sentences reduced because because they use the whole changeling, I thought it was a changeling, the whole, because, people were a lot more superstitious at that, centuries ago. So you know, the stories, I mean, they really vary. And like I said, there are actual written accounts of people who swear that they had encounters with changelings, you know, or they swear that, you know, they stepped into a fairy ring and, you know, when they emerged, they thought that they were only there for maybe 10-20 minutes when really their family and friends had been searching for them for like, you know, couple of months, you know, and it's really fascinating, and I do want to explore it a little bit more, especially, you know, for, you know, my bonfires, castles, and time travel articles, and like I said, I'm even going to be doing some cool little series for Celtic Nations magazine and everything. So all right, so we're coming on to the hour, and yeah, and definitely let me know what's your favorite Celtic, you know, Celtic fable or Celtic folklore, and you know, what, maybe what would you like to see me write about in Celtic Nations magazine? That would be pretty cool. So yeah, so thank you so much for joining me, and if you missed this or if you only caught some of it, the replay will be up after I sign off of here, and it'll also be up on all my other platforms too. And Celtic Nations magazine is also going to be another home for the replays of the Tavern live stream. So thank you very much for joining me, whether you join me live or join me in the replay. I always appreciate it. And cheers to you. All right, hope you have a wonderful weekend, and I will see you in the next live stream. Cheers, huzzah. All right, one more drink. Yes. All right. Thank you very much. Have a great, oh, hey, hey, thanks for joining. Yeah, so I'll have the replay up very soon, right after this. So thanks very much for joining me, and hope you have a great night, and I'll see you in the next live stream. All right.